By all accounts, former Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok was exactly what Sudan needed, a man born and educated in the North African nation who had built a solid reputation as an effective diplomat. Hamdok was a respected economist who had jobs with the African Development Bank, the International Labour Organization and the United Nations. Former colleagues have described him as a compassionate diplomat, a humble listener, brilliant and disciplined. When Hamdok became Sudan's Prime Minister in 2019 as part of a civilian and military power-sharing agreement, there was hope that he could steer the country out of a vicious cycle of coups and violent dictatorship. But it wasn't meant to be. Hamdok resigned Sunday after the latest military takeover in October plunged the nation into chaos. What you're looking at here are images of protests that have been rocking Sudan the past several months. People there on the ground really pushing for democratic reform. And many of the people you see here have actually lost their lives during demonstrations. Now that the military, though, is in total control, these protests are only expected to grow. And some fear that the worst is yet to come for Sudan. The question is, if Hamdok couldn't change the trajectory of Sudan, who can? Time now for the exchange and someone who has first-hand knowledge of what led to the breakdown of Hamdok's administration. Ahmed Shomok was a senior member of Hamdok's office, his former chief of staff. He joins us live now. Ahmed, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Zain.
Okay, so it's been 2 days since Prime Minister Hamdok stepped down. Obviously, you're close with him. You've worked with him very, very closely over the past few years. How's he doing?
Well, he's doing fine. Of course, after the resignation, he's now trying to make way for someone else to complete the path of the transition, hopefully to continue leading the country towards the civil democratic transformation that we all want for our country.
The power-sharing agreement that Hamdok struck with the military as a condition for him being released from house arrest proved to be extremely controversial. I understand that he thought that he was doing the right thing because he wanted to sort of please everybody. He wanted to strike a deal with the military. He wanted his job back. He thought that he could sort of help steer the country towards democracy. Obviously, it proved a disaster for him. His popularity plummeted because of that. There were demonstrations in the streets. There were countless protests. Does he regret that move now?
Excuse me, I didn't get the end of the question.
I'm saying that does Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, does he regret signing that very controversial deal with the military after the coup that took place in October, the deal that he signed in November? Does he regret it?
He does not, and that's what he stated in his resignation speech to the nation 2 days ago, and the statement he released on the anniversary of the revolution. It was clear that when he struck this deal, he struck it with the intention to put the country back on the track for democratic transformation and to preserve the gains that we have accomplished throughout the past period of the transition. So he does not regret it. Actually, he was working very hard to keep the gains of the past period and to continue the path for democratic reform.
So where does this leave Sudan's path to democratic reform? Obviously, I understand that, Hamdok was very passionate about pushing the country towards democracy, but now that he's resigned, now that he's no longer in the executive branch, he doesn't have any power to do that. Where does Sudan go from here? Isn't this a major step backwards for the country?
Well, the people of Sudan will definitely continue to push for democratic reform. These aspirations have been long here before Hamdok came to office and will continue to be there after he resigned. What he was trying to do throughout the past period before the 25th of October coup and after signing the 21st of November agreement was all attempts to try and to see these aspirations come to life And so the people of Sudan can enjoy living and their future generations in a country where they can be prosperous, where they can be free, they can speak their mind, they can be safe, that their future generations can live in a free country. The people of Sudan will continue to push for that.
One of the, I guess, one of the sort of images, the videos that have really shocked the world, shocked and sickened the world, is really all of the images that we've gotten out of Sudan where innocent protesters have been shot and killed over the past few months because of the heavy-handedness of the military. I want to know, what did Prime Minister Hamdok do to try to protect his people during all of that?
From the first moment that Prime Minister Hamdok came to office after the agreement, one of the main chapters of the agreement was to form a task force tasked with investigating all the atrocities that have been going on after the 25th of October up to the day of the signing of the agreement, whether it be killings, the injured, attacking hospitals, and all these kind of atrocities. And this process will still be going on even after him resigning.
But the investigation is one thing to do afterwards. But what did he try to do to protect his people from further bloodshed?
Days after he resumed his work, he appointed a new head of police, which was working with him closely in order to avoid any further bloodshed and atrocities. And this work has been going on for the first month of the agreement. There was definitely violence, but the tone of the violence has drastically been downgraded since he came back to office. And this is something not even said by me, but this is shared by a vast group of people and group of the civil society, even inside and outside Sudan. People, commentators have been talking about this.
We have to leave it there. We are out of time. But Ahmed Shamak, thank you so much for being with us.